Hello all, welcome to this session of performance testing. We are very glad to present this from our openmentor.net. The motto is learn for free. In the last session we talked about the evolution of computers, architectures and non-functional testing. Here we are going to very specifically talk about different types of performance testing. Okay, when we very specifically talk about performance testing, there are different terms that may look similar in English, but they are definitely different. The first thing that you may be noticing is something called load test. What does this mean? There are something called online users, customer base, and concurrent users. Customer base meaning how many people are registered with you. That means, for example, if you take Facebook, they claim about 600 million people registered. And then if you talk about a bank knows how many account holders are there. Then there is something called online users. Online users mean users who are logged in. That means you logged into Facebook or Skype or Hotmail or Yahoo Mail or Gmail, but don't do anything. Just log in, keep the window open. That means you are a valid customer. At the same time you are connected to server, but you are not doing something with the server. Then there is something called concurrent users. Concurrent users meaning users who do something with server at the same time. That means two users simultaneously sending emails, two or more people doing a voice chat in Skype at the same time. That means you are sending or receiving data or making server to do something. When this is happening, you are treated as concurrent user with the other user. So what is more important is concurrent users testing. If users come one after the other, they are called sequential users. Still it is just one request, process the request, send the response. That's it. But I send the request, my request is being processed, at the same time you also send a request. That is called concurrent request. So we are talking about concurrent users. Whenever we are talking about performance testing, the most important thing is concurrent users test, of which the first thing is load. Load meaning expected number of users to be handled. That means in a bank knows how many customers come to a particular branch on an average on a typical early weekday, late weekday like Friday. They may know a pattern of how many people come between morning 10 and 11 o'clock, how many people come during the lunch, right? Accordingly they make space arrangements. Accordingly they open counters. So on a daily basis, right, X number of users definitely come to your bank or visit your website. Our web application must handle those people. Load is a daily phenomenon, right? It happens daily, and load may happen throughout the day. Maybe 5 people come between 10 and 11, 20 people may come between 11 and 12, 25 between 11 and 12 and 1, right? So counters are being loaded throughout the day, but they are not exceptional number of people coming. But at least your web application must handle X number of users. For example, if you give say 500 invites for a function, for a family function, right? How many people do you expect, right? And maybe all the 500 invites are responded, may not be, maybe 60%. Per invitation, maybe 2 people coming up, it may be like, so 300 invites into 2 people, 600 people may turn up. That means make sure space, coffee, tea or dinner is made for these many people. So if you have given X number of invites, you should expect X number of people, right? Maybe Y number of people, they need not be the same. That's called a load. So how many people will come to my web application? How do I know? In a web, theoretically, millions can come. Millions of people can come to your site. But practically it never happens, because the traffic to your website depends upon your marketing. There are more than 1 million websites in the net, but only a few are getting a lot of hits. Why? Because they are popular. So depending upon the popularity and the usage, your website may attract traffic. So depending upon your marketing, your value proposition, crowd will come. So never expect millions and millions right on day one to your web application. Based on your marketing, your geography, you know how many people may come to your site. Make sure it works for those many number of people. That is called load. Then there is another word called stress test. Stress test is nothing but overload. If you are expected to work 8 hours a day, that means you are prepared for 8 hours a day. You should not get a headache at the 8th hour. That means you are not prepared. But on some day, if I ask you to work for say 12 hours, maybe at the 12th hour you may get headache because you are overworking. Right? Same way, you are expected to work for 5 days a week and I am asking you to work for 7 days a week, you may be overloaded. During the overloaded time, you may get problems. That is called stress. But stress happens for a shorter duration. Stress never happens throughout the day. Imagine you have given 500 invites and you expect some 600 people to turn up based on the invites and probability. Suddenly 1,000 people came to the function. Initially you will have tea, coffee, everything to serve the people, but it gets drained. You may be short of stuff for the 300 people in the last, right? Space may be a crunch. That time you have to do something quickly, right? Maybe get something else, biscuits, whatever, to treat those people well. But that will not happen for a long time. It will not happen throughout the day. It may happen for a couple of hours, but that couple of hours will make you feel like it is like a couple of years. So stress happens for a shorter duration. It's like a flash flood. Out of nowhere, if the crowd comes, if more water comes through the river, it causes damage. Because the passage may not be adequate for the flash flood to get drained in a quick span of time, but within a few hours it does the damage. So that is called a stress test. Same way, if your website is so popular, on some day more people will hit at the same time. Classic examples of publication of results, right? It may be company quarterly results or exam results. All the students will look to that exam results, or all the investors will look at that quarterly results. Suddenly for 15 minutes the website will be heavily stressed. Then people will go off, but during that stress test, system may fail. So expect Y percentage over normal load. That Y may be 50% more or 100% more or 200% more. That is called stress test. Then there is something called capacity or scalability. That means at some point of time system may break down. Find out, in mechanical industry there is something called yielding point, right? Or also known as elastic limit. If you have a rubber band and then you just keep on stretching it, right? It is elastic and it stretches to some extent, then it breaks. That point is the yielding point. Same way, system may also accommodate more users. At some point it will crash because every user occupies memory and CPU. When memory is drained and CPU is drained, the system may freeze or system may crash. Find out that point. Why should I find out that point? Because it's like you knowing the limit of the dam. If you say Stanley Reservoir in Mettur in River Kaveri in India is 120 feet tall, then we know the limit is only that much. And if more inflow is happening and we are nearing 119th feet, then we should have a mechanism to drain water, else the whole dam will be swept away. So if we know our limits, we can make alternate arrangements when more and more crowd keeps on coming into our web application. That testing is called capacity or scalability testing. There is another testing called volume test. That means huge data. Take railways, Indian Railways reservation. In any given day, around 8 lakh tickets, that means 800,000 tickets, 800k tickets per day is booked. And the reservation is available for the next 60 days window. If you have 60 days into 800k tickets, the database will have millions and millions of records. When database is getting huge, data retrieval time, storage time, updation time all takes more time. That because of that system may crash. Now imagine credit cards, right? Like MasterCard, Visa card, worldwide. How many transactions will happen every day, right? That's huge. Same way, email daily in Gmail, right? So many people are sending text, attachments, right? Everything is finally stored in disks. When disks are getting full, retrieval time, storage time, they all take more, and it occupies memory and then it chokes. Testing with gigabytes and terabytes of data is called volume test. There is something called endurance test. That means people call it also as availability test. Okay, it means run for a longer duration. Keep on running the system, hit with say 100 users for say 1 week, no shutting down. Twitter, Facebook, Skype, they don't go down, right? Recently there was a downtime from Skype. Millions and millions of users got affected. So your system cannot go down. When users are using, make sure it lives longer, right? It's a longevity test of your servers. When so many users hit, when so much of data is stored and trafficked, is your system alive? That testing called endurance test, right? So we talked about load, stress, scalability, volume, and endurance. All these put together called performance testing. Okay, during performance testing, what should I look for? Topmost thing is from user's point is, I say, look for response time, right? The response of your system must be fast. Some companies talk about say within 10 seconds, or some companies talk about within few seconds or 2 seconds. Home page should load. Search results must be rendered within 5 seconds. So response must be fast. A quicker system is the killer app to attract people. Then from the system's perspective, CPU usage, memory usage, network usage, then disk usage, all must be minimal, right? It should not go exponentially. So there is something called monitoring tools. Using monitoring tools, you can really see how much of CPU is being used. Now I show you the performance graph. This is the task manager and window. Now you see 37% of the CPU is occupied, and only 418 megabytes are available in memory. If more processes are starting in this machine, more CPU and memory will be consumed. So someone has to monitor CPU, memory, and network bandwidth to ensure that we are using minimal system resources. In Microsoft, you have got something called Perfmon to monitor. Then in Unix and other places, you have got if you use top, the command will show what are the top users, and then you can use something called PS or network statistics, netstat, which port is used, which process is used, right? So you can monitor all the system related stuff, but that is not enough. Every server, like web server, DB server, app server, all must be monitored. In the next session, we will be talking about different servers also, right? What happens in performance testing. So every server must be monitored for CPU, memory, disk, and network to ensure nothing goes wrong at the system level. Then if there are problems happening, there is something called profiling. Profiling meaning go inside and find out what happens. It's like a scan or X-ray. They go into the programs and then check out which function is taking more CPU, which function is taking more memory. There is something called a call tree. Which function calls the other, what are the variables passed, what is the object size, right? This is also known as diagnostics. Diagnostics meaning go inside the code, ensure that which is taking more memory or system resources. Based on this, you can pinpoint which class, which method, and then which line takes more time, and then fine-tune that part. So performance testing clubbed with profiling will give you enough details on what is going on in your load test. Okay. There are some common tools available for performance testing. One of the leading tools is Load Runner by HP, and there is something called Silk Performer by Borland, and there is something called Rational Performance Tester by IBM. There is something called Test Complete. There is something called Gomez by CompuWare, and there are other tools, right? There are a lot of tools that can help in terms of doing concurrent user testing, but all the tools do the same thing of all these top 5: load, stress, scalability, volume, and endurance. With this, I'll stop this session. In the next session, we will talk about different servers and what happens in performance testing. Thank you.